My son cracked the second egg too hard, and shell fell straight into the bowl. He froze. I watched his face tighten, waiting for someone to get irritated. "It's fine," I said, fishing the pieces out with a spoon. "That's part of baking." He relaxed immediately. My daughter kept leaning over the counter trying to spread frosting onto a cake that hadn't cooled properly. The icing slid sideways in slow motion while she laughed at it. The kitchen smelled like vanilla and burned edges. For about an hour, everything felt light. My mother's birthday usually came with tension attached to it, but I'd convinced myself this year might be quieter, smaller. My wife didn't say much while we packed the cake into the car, though I noticed the look she gave me before handing over the carrier. Careful. Not with the cake. With myself. On the drive there, my daughter asked from the back seat, "Is Grandpa still upset about Christmas?" Nobody answered immediately. "Families get annoyed sometimes," my wife finally said gently. That seemed enough for the kids. It wasn't enough for me. By the time we reached my parents' house, the driveway was already crowded. My brother's truck, my aunt's sedan, music faint through the windows. I carried the cake carefully to the front door while my wife stayed back helping the kids out of the car. My father opened the door before I knocked. He didn't say hello. His eyes dropped to the cake box, then back to me. "Don't make this about you tonight." The sentence came out flat, efficient, like something he'd already decided to say before I arrived. I remember blinking once because my brain needed a second to catch up. "What? You heard me." Behind him I could see decorations hanging over the dining room archway. My mother laughing somewhere deeper inside the house. I stood there holding a homemade cake with uneven frosting flowers my children had spent all afternoon making, and suddenly I felt 12 years old again. Every achievement too loud. Every achievement too difficult. Every contribution somehow suspicious if people noticed it. I nodded once. "Okay." My father looked almost surprised there wasn't a fight attached to it. I stepped past him, carried the cake into the kitchen, set it carefully on the counter beside trays of catered food, then walked back out. My mother spotted me halfway through. "You just got here. Happy birthday, Mom." I kissed her cheek and left before she could ask questions. My wife looked confused when I got back into the car alone. "Or leaving?" "Yeah." She studied my face for a few seconds, then simply nodded and buckled the kids in. Nobody spoke much on the drive home. 15 minutes later my phone vibrated. My brother. "Why did the bank decline Mom's card?" I stared at the message while standing in my kitchen. Then another came. "Dad's freaking out right now." Earlier that week I'd removed myself from the family overdraft protection account. Not maliciously, not dramatically. I'd been attached to it for years because my parents had struggled financially when I was younger. Eventually my income stabilized. Theirs mostly did too, but somehow I remained the invisible safety net underneath everything. Utilities, last-minute shortages, emergency coverage, quiet transfers nobody mentioned afterward. A month earlier my wife asked me a question while we reviewed our finances at the table after the kids went to bed. "If they talk to you like you're a problem," she said carefully, "why are you still financing the piece?" I didn't answer her then, but I removed my name from the account 3 days later. I just hadn't announced it. Now my phone buzzed again. "Answer me." I typed slowly. She said not to make it about me, so I didn't. 3 dots appeared instantly, vanished, reappeared. Then nothing. About 2 hours later, someone pounded on my front door hard enough to wake the dog. My wife looked up from the couch. "I'll handle it." My father stood outside rigid with anger, jacket half-zipped, face flushed from the cold. "What the hell is wrong with you?" he snapped the second I opened the door. I stayed quiet. "You embarrass your mother on her birthday over some petty little issue?" "Dad, you let her card get declined in the middle of dinner." "I didn't let anything happen." His jaw tightened. That stopped him for a second. Because it was true. I hadn't canceled anything, frozen anything, punished anyone. I had simply stopped standing between them and consequences they assumed would never reach them. "You could have warned us," he said finally, though there was less force behind it now. I leaned against the doorway. "You told me not to make things about me." "That's not what I meant." I almost laughed at that. Behind me, I heard the stairs creak softly, the kids listening. That changed something in me immediately, not anger. Clarity. I lowered my voice. "I brought Mom a cake my kids made by hand," I said. You greeted me like I was already guilty of something. He looked away first. Only briefly. But enough. The silence afterward felt unfamiliar, because nobody rushed to smooth it over. No apology came. But no denial came either. Eventually my father exhaled through his nose and muttered, "Your mother liked the cake." Then he walked back to his car. Later that night, after the house settled, my phone lit up with a text from my mother. The frosting flowers were beautiful. Emma still writes her eights backwards like you used to. I read it twice. No apology. No mention of dinner. No acknowledgement of the argument. But it was the first message from her in years that noticed something about me without asking something from me afterward. Around midnight, I stood alone in the kitchen cutting leftover slices of cake for the kids' lunches. The layers had sunk slightly in the middle. Too much frosting on one side. Imperfect. Homemade. Fragile. I stared at it longer than necessary, still trying to figure out whether leaving that party had been an act of peace or just the first time I allowed my absence to become visible.